Palmore.
David, how are you?
I am well, sir. How are you?
Outstanding. Good to see you.
Outstanding Thursday. It's great to see you as well. Great to haven't seen you since the conference, but of course we see each other a lot. Yeah, we see each other a lot digitally,
right.
Online and everything.
Yeah, you bet.
How's how have you been? How's the schedule and how's work and how's all this other stuff?
Yeah, all is good. Off to a fast start. I do feel like I recommend to most folks that I had some downtime during the holidays to sort of get reoriented, reprioritize, and then barrel into the new year ready to go. So in this conversation between you and I is part of it. So excited to get an opportunity to speak to you and whoever decides to listen in on this great conversation that we're going to have.
Sure, we won't know until they start asking questions anyway. But MK, I typically go through a little bit of an introduction about Cyversity. It's going to take about maybe 3 minutes or less. But if you don't mind, let me just go through that, and then we'll just get back to you and start the conversation.
Yeah, you bet.
Great. So for everyone that's in Cyberland or that's in the back channel, just listening to this conversation, this is a Meet the President, MK Palmore session. Impact interview series. This is sponsored by Cyversity. It's Cyversity's Engage production, and this is just one of the many things that Cyversity does to connect with its members, its sponsors, its partners, and sort of help drive value to the organization. I typically go through this quick sort of discussion about who Cyversity is, and as you can see, our mission is to achieve the consistent representation of women, traditionally underrepresented minorities and communities and veterans. And we do that through programs that are designed to diversify, to educate, to empower, to include. So those are the things that we focus on. Of course, our mission too is driven around being this go-to organization, organizations that, a diversity organization that helps corporations that have a broad-based approach that are looking to implement a broad-based approach of diversity, to look at Cyversity as one of the organisms that help them get there. We also want to be relational at scale so that from K through 12 through public board assignments and public board appointments, we want to be that connective tissue, that organism, that spoke wheel organization that helps individuals go through that whole process. We, of course, want to be able to drive diversity and challenge norms in diversity and challenging norms in cyber in most every area. And that would include training, that would include entrepreneurship, and that would include business development and recruiting. And so those are some of the things. And lastly, and most importantly, we want to be able to drive value to our members, drive value to our partners and sponsors, and increase the diversity and continue to narrow that digital divide that still exists out there. We're a membership organization, and we understand that membership is priceless. So typically, if you went to invest in yourself in 2024, and we started this membership in 2022, professional members would invest $100 in themselves a year to be a part of Cyversity, and students would also invest $20 a year. For that, there's quite a few resources. There's our chapters. We've got at least double digits, or 11 or even 11 chapters throughout the nation. We're very focused around mentee, mentor, protege programs, and putting a senior individual or placing a senior individual with another individual that's fledgling or even in transition, working together to help them build their profile in cybersecurity and help them move through that career path. There's also scholarships that we have been handing out for Cyversity. Has been around a little under 10 years as of today, and we've handed out hundreds of scholarships to deserving students and individuals to help them find their path and find their technical expertise, if you will, and develop those knowledge, skills, and abilities in cybersecurity. All the topic areas that happen here at the Impact Interview are focused around career development, career spotlighting, transitioning, leadership, something that MK can really speak to, and tech talk. Throughout the course of the year, you can see that we do have quite a few monthly highlights. Starting with next month is Black History Month, Women's History Month in March, and you can see that those things continue throughout the year. Our ground rules are, it's going to be about a 45-minute conversation focused on leadership, diversity, and inclusion. It's going to be a question and answer period at the close of the conversation, so put your notes in chat, and we'll begin to go from there. I'm going to back out of this document here, remove from the stage, and get back to MK and me, or me and MK, however you want to put that. MK, it's so good to have you back here again on the Impact Interview Series. It's been a great journey, and some great things are happening, but I don't know if everyone knows you, who you are, where you're from, how you've navigated your life in your course and your career to where you are today. You mind giving us some background about MK and just to bring us all up to speed on you?
Yeah, you bet. So one, appreciate the opportunity to engage, no pun intended, of course, in this way. I do quite a bit of speaking in my primary role as a cybersecurity advisor and practitioner at Google Cloud, but certainly as we get into this conversation about Cyversity, both its history and where it's headed as an organization, I love opportunities to engage with our membership and, quite frankly, evangelize the message beyond our current membership and sponsors to try and enlist the support and effort of others out there in the field. So how did I get into cybersecurity? For those folks who know me, I am I use the word jokingly, retired government official. I spent 32 years in the U.S. government between the U.S. Marines and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, 22 years in the FBI. I was a special agent those 22 years and an executive. I had the opportunity, as I like to say, back in 2007, I got assigned a very unique counterterrorism cyber case, which ignited, or should I say reignited, my interest in all things cyber. And throughout the remainder of my career, I had an opportunity to lead one of the largest cybersecurity investigative teams for the FBI. And I rolled that particular experience into a VP and advisory role at Palo Alto Networks once I retired from government. And I'm currently, as I stated earlier, a cybersecurity advisor in Google Cloud's Office of the CISO. I became acquainted with what was then ICMCP back in the 2016-2017 timeframe. The organization was doing, at the time, no West Coast presence, was doing a West Coast summit. I had the benefit of attending the meeting and being surrounded by cybersecurity practitioners and leaders who looked like me and came from very diverse backgrounds, and also quite a few allies, which is a subject that we should also spend some time talking about. And immediately the messaging of the organization resonated with me. So I became a member immediately while I was still in government. And then when I matriculated into the private sector, I stood up the Bay Area chapter of Cyversity back in 2019 with the support of some colleagues at then Palo Alto Networks and some folks at Salesforce and some other entities, created what I think to be still a very healthy chapter. I subsequently was asked to join the board of directors sometime later. It was 2021, I believe, and was asked to step into the role of president at the top of the year. So I spent all of last year as the VP of operations for Cyversity, diving deeply into the organization's remit, its processes, its value proposition to its members, and frankly, our relationship with partner sponsors and the like. And I'm excited about what we have on the blotter or landscape for 2024, looking to increase membership, increase member value so that the members understand that the value of this organization extends beyond just their entry into the cybersecurity field. And again, excited to have this conversation about all things DE&I, our commitment to veterans, our commitment to disenfranchised communities, and quite frankly, elevating our members and their status in the cybersecurity landscape. So again, thanks for the invite and looking forward to the conversation in question.
That's great. Some of the things that you mentioned, your time in government and your time, you don't even look that you don't look like that age, but you certainly given us an idea of how long you've been a part of the fabric of our nation security, and now as far as in private practice here. You mentioned allies, you mentioned the chapters, you mentioned operations, membership, and value. What's the roadmap looking like these days? What's the,
Yeah.
I know in one of our conversations sort of laid out a little bit of a pyramid map that showed stability, that showed strategic partnerships, that showed allies and things of that nature. Go through that, if you will.
Sure. So let's talk about priorities. And if I had to distill the priorities down into a few bullet points, I would say that one, creating a sustainable process for development for the organization is priority one for me as president. And for folks who are unaware of how that term is used in the nonprofit space, development actually relates to the organization's ability to raise money and to raise funds in support of its mission. I don't think it's an overreach to say that DE&I efforts are a part of a changing landscape, quite frankly, under attack in some circles. Historically, as an organization, Cyversity has relied almost solely on corporate related support in order to finance the programs, mentorship, curriculum programs, scholarships, all the things that we deliver to our members have focused largely on corporate support. We will continue to solicit that kind of corporate support where we can find synergies with large-scale vendors and providers whose mission aligns with our own. So that will continue to be a piece of it. But as a priority, we now expand those pillars to foundation support, individual benefactor support, and individual member support. And we believe that across those pillars, we will be able to create a more sustainable model for the organization to raise money moving forward. So that's number one priority, development from my perspective. I have to ensure that when my term is over, at the end of 2 years, that I hand the reins in a secure, comfortable, and solid fashion over to the next president of Cyversity with an organization that is much more healthy than when I stepped into the gate. That's, for those of us that served in the military, that's kind of the number one remit from a leadership standpoint. You always want to turn over an organization in better shape than it was when you assume the reins. So that's priority number one. Second, and I wouldn't take these in any particular order, but second, I think delivering member value rises in my mind to the thing that we absolutely need to convey. We have an aspiration. I've talked about this before. We want to own the cybersecurity pipeline, the cybersecurity journey for our members. We don't want our members to think, hey, let me join Cyversity, get this particular cert, and then my use of Cyversity then begins to decline. That's not the model we're looking for. We're looking for a much more sustainable model where during each phase of an individual's cybersecurity career, Cyversity as an organization, either through its ecosystem, partner network, networking opportunities, scholarship opportunities, offers something to members so that we can retain membership throughout the life cycle. You touched on it, I think, in the introduction. I'll give you a firm example of this. At my level as a cybersecurity practitioner, senior advisor, executive in a large-scale corporation, I am ready to align myself to potential board opportunities as a cybersecurity practitioner. Cyversity has partnerships that are in development so that we can prepare our senior members for that level of access in their careers. Risk certifications, board certifications. These are all things that have become common parlance now in the past couple of years. Those in mid-career. I can't tell you the number of times I get questions from folks who are mid-career about what they need to do in order to take their career to the next level. They want to know why they aren't getting leadership opportunities presented to them. We have developed a core curriculum now that will not only answer the mail for those mid-career folks, give them an opportunity to train on very specific items that we think will propel their career in different directions. We also have a leadership component to it, where we're going to now start through our partners and providing leadership training to individuals within our membership so that they can then prepare themselves for that next level of access. And then, lastly, we will always continue to support new entrants into the field. I think that at the end of the day, that's part of our core mission, to bring new folks into the pipeline. And so certainly at the 18 plus college level or college adjacent, as I like to say someone has decided that they would rather not go to college, but they still want to break into cybersecurity. We want to give both of those personas an opportunity to train and then get themselves into the field and then subsequently thrive and survive. And then the last thing, priority-wise, in terms of the roadmap that is on the marker for us. So we're talking about financial stability. We're talking about member value. The last thing I think is making much more effective use at a grassroots level of our now growing network of chapters. As you noted, we have 11 chapters. I think 2024 may be the first year that we actually expand outside of the US. The transition to the new member platform and some previous conversations has shown us that we have membership actually all over the world. So there's an opportunity, I think, through conversations with partners and maybe folks existing outside of the US, that we may stand up an international chapter as well. So the chapter network is important. And we think that we can be doing much more in terms of our impact to communities in those areas where we have active chapters. I know that, David, you run a very active chapter. Imagine, if you will, if Cyversity turns out in your region to be the go-to entity for cybersecurity access and training for disenfranchised communities within the area that you live there in Texas. Imagine if the political will was present in these individual geographic regions for us to partner with not only corporations in those regions, but community organizations, so that we can deliver the message, opportunities on cybersecurity, and really begin to, at scale, expand exposure to this wonderful career opportunity that many of us are currently enjoying. So that's a lot in and of itself. But with the new leadership team, folks should know that we have a massive, or let me take a step back, new board of directors, which I'm impressed personally with my colleagues now on the board of directors. I've always been impressed. The founders were and are outstanding folks, but this new board of directors that we have brought together was very intentional in terms of how we selected these folks. And I think that we now move into a stage where we have an immensely high-performing board with access to fill in the gaps in some of the areas that I mentioned that will really, again, seed a foundation that will take Cyversity to its next level. So we have a massive opportunity. I think that if we do it, if we execute well, execution at the end of the day is the key to all of this. If we execute well, I really think that we can elevate not only the brand of Cyversity, but its impact on the industry. And it's a tall order, but I think, I honestly think we're capable of doing it, provided we pull all the pieces together. And again, leverage folks like yourself and other volunteers. We are a massive volunteer network organization. Cyversity has one full-time employee, Abby Carlton, bless her soul, her heart. Abby's sort of our go-to person on a lot of stuff. The rest of us are engaged as volunteers, and we get a lot done as a volunteer organization. I think we can get even more done if we get some more folks to raise their hand and really, really begin to execute on some of these objectives that we have.
Interesting. I mean, you're right. That was a lot. And I just want to grab some of it and see if I can get into pieces and parts of some of it and focus on, each individual thing that you've mentioned, whether it was focused on the execution, how, what, and what's my role, right? How, what, and then I'm going to talk about the being relational and sustainability. And it was that, MK, that was a lot, and that was great. It really was. But execution is going to be the factor that really determines whether we succeed or not. The founding board, had an audacious goal, and now you've stepped into the fray, and you guys have got a group of board members who are as diverse as anything I've ever seen. What's the execution, if you will, strategy? You may have hit on some of it, with just a little bit more detail so that those that are listening can understand the execution strategy, because in that, I think sometimes we'll see what our individual roles are to help and support you and your ongoing operations.
Execution is about accountability. I think that we have a responsibility to a couple of different stakeholders. Our members, for whom the organization exists, we have to execute in a much better fashion to deliver to them opportunities to grow and sustain their careers. I think to our partners, we have a different level of accountability for which it's a two-way street. They're providing a discounted service to us, which we then in turn provide at a near zero cost to our members. Those relationships are important. Like, we went through an exercise last year at my behest to begin to carve out and tier our partnerships, our relationships, like which ones at a tier 1 level are most important to the organization and are going to help us thrive over a 3 to 5 year time period. That's actually a small number. It's a small number of organizations for whom we can count on their continued support, their continued partnership and engagement, and we can build from a foundation of trust those relationships and really continue to invest in them. Tier 2 partnerships. These are partnerships that are helpful, maybe part of a longer roadmap for the organization. A lot of this stuff requires a lot of management, a lot of intent in terms of meeting times and relationship building and cultivating these relationships, and then subsequently delivering services to the members. All of that has to be intentional. And the exercises that we've gone through in terms of culling out maybe partnerships that weren't beneficial to the organization, and now really getting down to the meat of who it is that we need to be partnered with in order to deliver value to our members, can take quite a bit of time and effort. So, part of my responsibility as president, and part of what I did last year as VP of operations, was really begin to identify from an accountability standpoint how we institute processes that are going to help us execute at the end of the day. Part of that, still in flight, I think we have a responsibility to folks like yourself who are chapter leaders to be much more prescriptive in terms of what our expectations are of you guys. We're going through an exercise which we will bring in the chapter leaders on around what does it mean to have a healthy chapter? Is it the number of events that you have? Is it the number of sponsorships that your chapter brings to the table for the national organization? Is it your membership growth over time? All metrics that are important, but things, quite frankly, that we haven't historically collected and then been able to convey to our potential sponsors, members, and others. We're doing sort of a backwards looking exercise at the moment. Member survey is out there for all Cyversity members. There's a new, first of its kind, we've never done an annual member survey where we want to garner your feedback on how it is that we're doing our jobs and how we're executing. Please take time to fill out that survey. We've limited the number of questions. It's important that we get your feedback. That one example, again, of extracting sort of that corporate knowledge out of the membership so that we can begin to tweak the processes and delivery that we have so that we're delivering a much more impactful and desired result. There's a ton in flight. We've expanded the leadership team. I went through the process of asking another well-qualified volunteer to devote her time to helping us straighten ourselves out in terms of the academic curriculum that we deliver. So we created a position, head of curriculum development. Monique Head, who's one of my former colleagues from Palo Alto Networks and a friend, I asked to step into the shoes, and Monique's done a fantastic job of building out a brand new curriculum. We are actually going to have a separate webinar on what that curriculum looks like, hopefully during the month of February. So we'll tee that up for a follow-on conversation. But There's a lot in flight, David. I think that if I were to, we could probably spend a few hours just sort of detailing all of the individual projects that are underway to help provide bigger impact to our membership and sponsors.
Awesome. So let's start with Monique Head, because I've asked her to come on to the Impact Interview Series on the 25th. I don't want to collide with whatever you're going to be doing. So just let me know if we're interfering, or we should be collaborating, or how we should do that. Or if you want to come to us and we'll host you. We'll host you.
Not interfering at all. I don't think we can. I don't think we can spend too much time getting the messaging out on the work that she's done in the background on pulling this new program together. She did some fantastic work. I want to make sure we get the opportunity to show the thought leadership that she's put into this. And again, it gets down to the execution piece, which I think is going to be part and parcel of whether or not we consider ourselves to be successful at the end of the year.
Sure.
But I think it's a game changer for us. Folks may not understand how historically the organization did this. We went about building programs in a very bespoke fashion for the sponsors as they came to the table. And that just got to be an impossible way to manage our efforts. And again, to that accountability piece, I think there were a couple of opportunities where maybe we shuttled some goodwill with sponsors because we didn't quite execute the way that we needed to on those opportunities. So we've standardized the approach. And now when we bring the sponsors and donation money to the table, it will feed into the process that Monique has created. It's really going to be an exceptional program.
Good. I'm sure we'll hear more from her and from you guys when you have your webinar. You've spoken about member value, right? And so I understand member value to be the benefits that members derive or they get from being a part of Cyversity. But that's kind of a two-way street like anything else, right? What do we as members need to do? What's our role to help and support? What should we be doing? I can name a couple of things, but I just want to give you the opportunity to just dig into that a little bit, and we'll go back and forth there.
Yeah, no, we can go back and forth on it. Number one, demand a great experience, right? Members should have high expectations of the organization, and we intend to deliver on those expectations, to deliver a value that is unquestionable. In other words, I want to get to the point where this is not a facetious statement. I want to get to a point where members are saying, wow, for the little amount of money that we pay for membership, we get an enormous amount of return on our investment. That will be the biggest compliment that I could hear from someone. And the minute I hear it, believe me, I'm going to digest it. I love it. So I want members to understand that they should be getting something out of this experience. This is not just in some association that was created just so people can get on the same Slack channel and just exchange notes with one another. We have to deliver impact to our members, and then in a wider version, deliver impact to the industry overall. And then I would put probably in a third tier sponsors. So they should ask a lot of us, and we should be prepared to deliver in return. The other things that I would highlight in this regard are the idea that, for amplification, like one of the things that sort of, I'm a heavy LinkedIn user. It's been part, and anyone that comes to me for coaching advice or like career advice, I use LinkedIn. It has brought more opportunities to me than I could really number because of what I believe to be my effective use of the platform. I am surprised that our posts don't get more amplification from members, that don't go viral with some of the things that we post, some of the things in terms of achievements that we've done. So in terms of an ask of members, when you see us on social media, amplify that messaging. Social media is right now the way that messaging gets to everybody. We can't ignore this. We see it happening in other verticals, and we certainly know that in the cybersecurity field that companies use this, companies pay attention to this kind of thing, foundations pay attention to this kind of thing. So if you see posts that come from Cyversity, my ask of the members, amplify those messages, get in there, make comments, state what kind of impact the organization has had on you as an individual. All of that stuff helps. So amplification is part of it. And then lastly, I would say each one bring one. So bring someone else to the table to be a member so that they also can get benefit out of this extraordinary organization. You should be, as a member, recommending Cyversity to other people. Let's all get the folks that we know, the people who can be supporters, into our organization so that we can amplify the messaging. And that includes allies. I hear from my colleagues at Google and other places all the time. Hey, all that work you're doing in DEI is fantastic. What can I do? You know what my message is to them? Join Cyversity and support what we're doing. Let me pause there.
That's a great message, and it's a great package message. Here it is. Here's what you can do. Here's how you can make the biggest effect. I was getting ready to ask you questions about the allies, but you jumped into it really effectively. This whole conversation about being relational, right? Being the entity that everyone just wants to come to and look at, especially organizations that are saying, hey, I want to develop a broad-based diversity strategy at my company. I mean, what is that? What is the value of us being relational, and where are we doing it, and how do we do it? How do you drive that down to our basis?
This is a great question, and I'll answer it in this way. What I've seen work is where Cyversity develops sticky relationships with company ERGs or employee resource groups. That's our way of creating long-term connectivity to our corporate entities. In creating connectivity with those entities, whether it's the Latinx plus, Black plus, any company ERG, creating connectivity to them, I think, is one of the best ways I've seen through example for Cyversity to create that stickiness and relationship building with corporations. We have found, quite frankly, that security organizations within corporate enterprise, they are challenged with their budgets. They are challenged with their opportunities to support organizations like ours. So creating that relational stickiness, we can be of support, not only coming in and providing networking opportunities for the ERG members, aligning on corporate events. Like I would love to see in-kind support from corporate sponsors. We've been successful in doing that here in the Bay Area. A number of events at Google, my employer, number of events at the time at Palo Alto Networks when I was employed there. I know that our team in Seattle currently has events, Seattle and actually DC, doing events at Microsoft, right? We got to leverage the existing relationships that we have. If you work for a company that you think may align with our messaging and align with our mission, who may be willing to support our efforts, connect us with the entities that are within those companies where we might be able to have those conversations. It all helps. It all matters. From an event planning standpoint that, when you think about planning an event for your chapter, the first thing we think about is what space can we hold this in? How are we going to get folks through the door? What time of day should we have it? Do we have an ability to provide food and refreshments? There's companies out there that will do almost all of that in conjunction with us in support of our mission. We need to leverage those kinds of relationships so that we can amplify our messaging and then, again, get those corporate entities to open up their employee base to our mission and then subsequently have those folks join us as well.
Great. Awesome feedback there. And one of the things that has changed that seems to be changing to a reasonable degree is our conference process or our conference approach. I know that we've always had this sort of great grand annual conference, but it seems that we may be looking at something different. Can you explain where we're going with that?
Yeah. So for those of you that have never been involved in planning a conference, a national conference, they are extremely costly. Organizations pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to put on conferences with the belief that putting on these types of events will deliver a return on investment. Either they'll have more attendees than they were planning to cover the cost of the conference, or the relationships that they intend to build at the conference and otherwise are worth the spend in terms of the future return on investment that will either bring partners or otherwise to the table. Organizations like Cyversity that operates, quite frankly, on what I will describe as a sub 1 million annual operating budget. That's a significant amount of money to spend for an event that doesn't necessarily return the kind of impact that you are looking for. And the new direction that we're going to take is more partnering with corporate sponsors for in-kind support. In other words, allow us to use space. We're going to regionalize the effort by trying to hold at least 1 to 2 regionally related conferences, centering in on areas where we know folks don't necessarily have to get on a plane. Think Washington, D.C., think Atlanta, think West Coast opportunities to pull folks in where they already exist and deliver an impactful one-day conference that will allow folks to get in, get the relationships, get the materials, and then return to their lives. One of the interesting things about conferences, all the places that you might think to hold a conference, Las Vegas, we were at Orlando, the cost and barrier to entry is significantly high, and asking folks to take 2-3 days, sometimes part of their weekend, in an effort to attend a professional conference is, I think, a lot to ask. And so the model that we're going to use shifts some of the financial responsibility onto partners. We think that's a good model to pursue, and we're going to make it easy for our members to get in, get out, extract their value out of it, get the materials that they need, and then get on with their daily lives. So be on the lookout. I would say, from a regional standpoint, I would encourage every member listening. The first thing you want to do, put RSA on your calendar. RSA, which is the biggest security event in the world, held annually here in the Bay Area, in San Francisco specifically. That's one-stop shop. You're going to meet, see, connect with everyone in the security community that you can possibly connect with. We are ramping up our efforts as an organization to have much more impact. If you've been paying attention, the 2 years prior, we've held a massively successful lunchtime event, and we hold a reception on the Wednesday of RSA. We are trying to expand and capture that whole day. We'll likely have a breakfast event, a lunch event, and our reception on the Wednesday of RSA. I want to encourage every member to think about attending. If you are in the Bay Area, you absolutely need to attend. But if I were going to say, if I would invest, as a security practitioner, my time on going to a sort of a one-stop shop on conferences, make sure that you attend RSA and support the Cyversity events that you're going to see there.
Sure, absolutely. I didn't hear you mention Austin, so of course I'm going to bring up, if you're going to do a regional events, we want to put our hat in the ring.
Absolutely, David. You know what? It's all in the packaging. If you can solicit the corporate support, and we can find some donation dollars to combine, and there's enough members there that we can pull into a single day event, then by all means, we're open to the discussion. And as you well know, I've been having these discussions with a few chapter leads. So let's continue the conversation.
Absolutely. When you talk about, firstly, I want to say this. I know that's right, Brian. South by Southwest. So now that I've said that and spoken to Brian,
you might have spoken it into existence.
Absolutely, that's right. You just took me off course from it. I just wanted to say this. There's a couple of you folks that are listening. I've got tons of questions, but I don't want to overstep your questions as well. I know you may have some questions for MK, our president, on what you would like to see or what you're thinking about. He sort of went away for a minute, but I hope he comes back. Well, there he is. So put your questions in the chat. Let's answer some of your questions as well, so that we can definitely get a broad reflection of questions here. MK, the whole idea of working with partners, something that, as you mentioned earlier, the Austin chapter is trying to get aggressive with that. I've always not necessarily struggled, but always been quizzical about what is it that we're definitely giving back to them. In my last conversation with your colleagues, Julian and Sharon, they sort of expanded on, hey, sometimes corporations just don't know what it is they want to do in terms of diversity. And you earlier mentioned that it's under attack in some spaces. what are we doing to give back to these corporations? They're the economic developers, the ones that create the jobs. What are we doing to help them and their bottom line too? Because I think that may be a key area of focus. Should it be an area of focus for us? Focusing and helping them continue to make that money that they can support us with.
Let me see if I can stitch this together. Every company is a technology company. Every company has responsibilities as it relates to their cybersecurity apparatus. Every company has a cybersecurity workforce. Every cybersecurity workforce, by its pure definition, is short on people and resources. There are, at any one point in time, 650,000 open cybersecurity positions here in the US. If you look globally, that number extends to like 1.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
These corporations need help building a sustainable cybersecurity workforce, and that's where we come in. We are here to help encourage a wider optic, bring new members, new practitioners to the table, and then, as I stated earlier, help them along the entirety of their cybersecurity career. So what we're offering to these companies is an ability to help nourish their cybersecurity and technology workforce. That's huge, because if left to their own devices, there are very few things in an internal apparatus that nourish that need to develop workforces. I mentioned earlier the subject of employee resource groups, which is, again, I think our touch point where we really begin to add value with our connectivity to corporations. Many of these corporations are looking for ways to help in this effort. And if I'm being honest, sometimes they don't know how best to help. We offer a viable way for them to support DE&I efforts by providing in-kind support to our events and activities for which their employees are welcome to attend, get exposed to the information that we are providing, potentially join the organization. And we are not short on quality speakers and quality content. We have quality speakers and content all over the US and the world, for that matter. So I think that, generally speaking, for those people who've attended our live in-person events, the quality has been off the charts, and folks typically walk away having not only really enjoyed the experience on a personal level, but having made real network connections that oftentimes will benefit them throughout their career.
And that is the point of being relational. It
Right.
Absolutely is the point of being
Absolutely.
totally relational. We've been talking also about driving or challenging norms in cybersecurity, when it comes to recruitment, when it comes to business development, entrepreneurial. I know we've got a sort of a professional development angle or approach that we use. Can you speak a little bit about how that particular part of our organization works, where, who, what, how, to some degree?
So expand on that just a little bit. I want to make sure I answer.
So we've been talking about the fact that we help folks hit that next level, that next plateau.
Right.
There's an educational piece. There's probably a mentoring piece. What else is there to that? How else do we get into helping folks?
There's education, there's mentoring, and then subsequently there is peer networking opportunities. Once let's spend a couple of seconds talking about networking. I hate to tell everybody, your resume is not going to be the thing that gets you the next job. Mm-hmm. Let that sink in for a second. I get hundreds of requests per year for me to look at people's resumes to help them prepare them to get a job. Yes, you should have a tightly focused and presentable resume that outlines your value add to the organizations that you've been a part of up to that point, your qualifications. People over-index on spending time on them, though, because that's not really the thing that's going to get you the next position that you have. if there's one takeaway from the value of our organization, the network that you begin to build once you become a member of this organization, begin attending events, virtual or otherwise, is the most valuable thing that you have as a professional in the cybersecurity realm.
Mm-hmm.
These companies see millions of applicants annually for these positions. Most times, they are using automated features to even determine if you get looked at, if your resume even gets looked at. So just think in pure round numbers, all these resumes go into a portal. There's automation to determine if they even look at your resume, and then subsequently, the recruiter who looks at your resume has to determine themselves that this person's worth passing on for the initial look. In other words, let's have a call to see if this person's even in the zone. The numbers are against you in this regard. The chances of you landing even that first interview by just blindly sending a resume are pretty slim. My advice to people, build your network. The number of times that you as a individual are either in a position to help someone or for someone to help you rises and falls on this principle, which is that if you can have someone at the very least make a warm handoff or a warm introduction, your chances of getting into the interviewing process rise dramatically from a warm handoff or a warm introduction, more so than just submitting a resume. You still got to wow them in the interview. You still have to do all the stuff that everyone else does. But just to get your name on the, hey, let's have a conversation with this person, your network can play a role in that ultimately will be responsible for you obtaining the next position. Every role that I've gotten post-government, the two major ones, as a VP at Palo Alto Networks, as a senior executive at Google, network.
Network being your net worth. It's incredible that you say that, because that is probably the key. At the last conference, Eunice Feliciano had a session on sponsorship, and the sponsors he spoke vividly about sponsorships, sponsors that you know, that you've developed and have created a relationship with, and those that you don't know. So sponsorship is great. I'm going to take a message from the chat here. It's from a LinkedIn user. I hail from France, a country that refrains from gathering ethnicity-related data, which in turn hampers the implementation of diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI initiatives. Given this context, is there a possibility to obtain mentorship from France?
Yeah, absolutely. This may be an individual one-off, but I would be surprised if we didn't have either first-degree connectivity or a connection to probably a senior leader in the country who can act as a mentor. And then, as I stated earlier, I suspect 2024 will be the first time that we launch maybe an international chapter. There are some discrete conversations going on at the moment related to EMEA. And my suspicion is that it will work out.
Sure.
With that said, with the virtual capabilities that we have, I would highly encourage the person that put this in to, one, reach out to me directly. I think from a time zone standpoint, would love to connect you with one of our senior leaders in Cyversity who are on the East Coast. And just from that time gap difference, I'm sure that, one, there's a mentor that you can align with who would be willing to support you. And then, of course, at the end of the day, we have a formal mentoring program, which I would encourage anyone to join, whether you're in the United States or outside the United States. We do have a cap on the number of applicants, but I believe the application process for that is either opening soon or is already open. So I would encourage you to join the mentoring program. All of this information is in the new member platform, which, again, I encourage folks to get into that new platform, reestablish your identities and membership in the organization, and stand by for all of this good stuff that we're putting out there.
Yeah, there's a question that came in from, I believe, New Jersey. But when you talk about the membership platform, it seems to be a website and a membership platform. Where should we be focusing our attention?
You should be focusing your attention on the membership platform. So we made a decision last year after looking at several different platforms to standardize on HiveBright, which is the vendor that we use to build this community, because they have been successful at building communities for other associations and organizations. And the idea here is to collapse all of our various efforts to include Slack. Slack will at some point be deprecated by us as an organization. We are going to move away from Slack, and all content, all opportunities, everything will be found in the member platform. There are a couple of benefits in addition to what I just described. One, we wanted to your point, David, the relational aspect. I do a lot of travel for business. Anyone that's in cybersecurity probably does a fair amount of travel. I do a lot of travel. I am looking forward to the opportunity when I drop into Atlanta, if I'm going to Detroit, if I'm going to Chicago, if I'm taking a trip down to Southern California, identifying Cyversity members that happen to be in those locations, reaching out via direct message to say, hey, I'm in town for 2 days. If you want to connect, grab coffee, something like that, let's do it. Here's where I'm going to be. That capability is now available to all members in this new platform. That's a game changer. It really takes your network to the next level when you're going to actually make face-to-face connectivity and communicate with folks. And again, if all you're asking for is a cup of coffee from someone, I can't imagine anyone's going to actually say no to that. The amount of my personal free time that I jump on calls with folks who I don't know who reach out to me blindly is off the charts. People will say yes if you want to network with them.
Sure. There's a question here or a statement from someone from New Jersey. I'm going to read it out. It says, I dropped, but now do not see my question suggestion about sharing feedback and proposed actions, fundraising in lieu of government and corp grants, and conducting job fairs with multiple corps, governments, and other organizations. YBS, past president of ISACA, New Jersey chapter. I'm not sure if there's a question there, but
yeah, if they want to amplify what the question is, there, I'd be happy to respond to that.
Sure. But until he does that, let me ask you, MK, if there's a question that you had for us members, what would that question be to us about what would your question be to us as a membership?
So let me take the easy response to that. I chaired the development of the member survey. All my questions are in that survey. So get online, take it, and you will answer my questions. But one of the real takeaways that we're hoping to get from the member survey is, what can we be doing as an organization that we're not doing to help you on your journey? We're not going to be able to execute on every response to that. But if we see a theme developing from several members that say, hey, it'd be great if you guys were doing X, Y, and Z. And if that's something that we can put on the roadmap that we can execute on with the available team that we have, we're going to do it. We want to be responsive to member sentiment and member need. Mm-hmm. So if there are things that you think an organization like ours should be capable of doing, express those concerns, express that sentiment, and believe me, it's all going to be digested. We're going to react to this stuff.
Yes, we've got about 6 minutes to go here, and I heard you very loud and clear. Get on this platform, answer your questions, because there's where you'll get all the feedback you need from the
member survey. Please take it.
That's great. If there are no additional questions in the chat from anyone, going once and twice. MK, parting words to us for today. First of all, really, I thank you. I mean, you're a busy cat. I know that because I try to catch you. And you're a very busy guy, and I really appreciate you carving out time to sit down with us here on the Impact Interview Series. You've been very instrumental in helping us stay where we are positioned with Cyversity. But what would be your parting message to us all that have gathered here together? There's one new comment, but what is that parting message?
Parting message is this. This is a passion topic for me, as it is for most people who devote time and effort to this. what I get out of this experience, quite frankly, on a personal note, is seeing others succeed. I can't tell you the joy and juice that I get out of seeing someone enter this field, begin to have success and thrive and really be in a position to transform their lives. I want to scale that feeling, that sense for all of us. We got to do a better job at getting this word out, exposing the opportunity in cybersecurity and the wider technology field to others who come from the communities that we represent. Women, typically underrepresented communities, all veterans. There is a fantastic opportunity in the cybersecurity realm. And it's a wonderful experience. If you can break through that door, which I know is hard, it is super hard. That's the piece we're trying to help folks with, but we also want to be helpful in helping you build a enriched and nourished career. We want you to thrive in this industry because there is ample opportunity. There's not a week that goes by that cybersecurity is not a piece of government news, business news, our individual lives. We as a community should be involved in being practitioners and part of the solution building for cybersecurity. And I would just encourage anyone, if you are willing to do the work, this Cyversity represents a community that will help you get to that next level. You got to be willing to do the work, though.
Absolutely. That was something that Sharon, your colleague in our chair, echoed. She said, this is not, if you think it's going to be easy or super easy, it's really not going to be that super easy. You're going to have to put your time in there and focus on it. In lieu of lack of funds, there's a LinkedIn statement here. In lieu of lack of funds and or grants, would you consider fundraising?
Fundraising. We're doing fundraising now. Yeah, but I described earlier the 4 domains or pillars that we're pursuing. We'll continue corporate sponsorships. We're applying this year for the first time foundation grants for support. We will get to government grants, I think, towards the end of the year. Individual donors, we're encouraging members who work for large corporations to do their donorship through platforms like Benevity. If you work for the Googles of the world, AWS, Microsoft, and others that use Benevity, the reason we encourage that, there's corporate matching funds associated with your donation. So it's like a double amplification of your donation. So even a $10 donation means $20 in most corporations. And those limits, for instance, at Google, that limit goes up to $10K in matching funds. That's enormous. That kind of individual commitment, but also on behalf of the corporation, does enormous good and directly impacts our members' ability to do the things that they would like to do. So, and then the last category, by the way, and I'll share this with you in full transparency. For the first time, we're making solicitations of wealthy individual donors in a new category we're calling benefactor support, which can be transformational for the organization. And before you sort of poo-poo that idea, I can tell you we've been successful already at getting a large-scale benefactor donor. So I know it's possible. We'll continue along those four domains.
Absolutely. Well, MK, again, thank you very much for being here. I'm so pleased with this conversation. And quite frankly, we've really only scratched the surface of everything.
Absolutely.
There's much more to do and so much. And so we're happy to be a part of this organization and its forward progress. If there are no questions from anyone else out there, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for everyone for attending. Thank you, MK, for just briefing us up. And we're looking forward to our next conversation. Our next conversation is going to be in February. We'll have 2 sessions, one with Michael Riatmo, who happens to be a LinkedIn learner trainer, and with Monique Head, who's going to dig deeper into this educational piece. We're so happy to have those 2 coming up in February. Until then, everyone, thanks again and have a great day.
Thanks for all you do, David. Thanks, everyone.
No doubt.